So what about you, the self-employed business owner? How are you protected during this crisis? So if you are a low earning self-employed person, so the HMRC and the government are targeting the lowest income individuals affected by COVID-19. And what they've done is reduced or relaxed the minimum income floor credit for universal tax credit, making it easier for people in self-isolation to apply for universal tax credits. They've also increased universal credits and working tax credits by £1,000 per year for 1 year. That's about another £20 per week, which is really not very much. So universal tax credits or universal credits are equivalent to about £94.25 a week, the same rate as SSP at the moment for the lowest income individuals, which is just not enough for anybody to live on. So if you find yourself in that bracket, the first thing the best thing for you to do is to ring the universal credits and to see if you can get registered, get online, talk to HMRC, look at the online calculators and see what benefits you might be entitled to and what you can claim to help yourself through these tough times. Now, these rules are changing, and I'm 99% sure I caught the end of a conversation yesterday in Prime Minister's Question Times where they were proposing some additional funding, another £20 a week on top of the increases that have already been allowed for the hardest hit, lowest income individuals affected by COVID-19. But I haven't seen that legislated anywhere, and I expect the rules will change very, very quickly. So the biggest challenge to the self-employed who find themselves in this bracket, businesses stopped overnight, is there is no income to feed their families and to move their, to pay their household bills. So there will be support. I'm certain it will be coming. It's just all a bit up in the air and we don't know quite what it is yet. We know the government are in talks with the FSB. We know that the self-employed are super, super complicated because we have such disparity of earnings between self-employed people, people in partnerships, people who have director, shareholder, owner managed businesses. And one person can be earning £1,000 a week, one person can be earning £10,000 a week or £20,000 a week. The disparity is huge. So trying to find one system that helps all in these tough times is quite hard. One would hope that if you're the high rate earner, you do have savings and you do have backup, but that's not always the case. So talk to HMRC, do go online and apply for the credits if you can, if you need to, and look at the calculators and see what you can generate. My biggest advice to you if you find yourself in this situation is to think more deeply, and I know this is easier said than done, about what it is that you do, what skills you have to offer, what services you supply your customers. How do they need those customers? How do they need those services? How are they getting those services met at the moment? It might be that they haven't got the money for it, but it might be that they you can't have people in the house if you're an electrician. You can't go out and meet people if you're a photographer. But there are still elements of your service and still ways of getting them perhaps to pre-book appointments for later on in the year when we come out of this crisis, and perhaps they can pay a deposit to secure your time and secure that slot. Perhaps there are things that you can do to help them self-serve those needs in their houses to bring in a smaller amount of income. So you wouldn't be able to charge a call-out fee for doing the job, but perhaps you can pay a consultancy fee for helping them fix that job themselves in their own house while they're on self-isolation. So I think for the self-employed who can't afford to live on the wages provided and the income provided by universal credit, working tax credits and SSP, you have to get earning in some way, shape or form. You have to generate that income yourselves to try and work your way some way out of this crisis. So I know it's easier said than done to do that, but I think as time moves on, as the weeks move on, we'll see people being more creative and more inventive with the skill sets that they do have and learning how to make money. Now, what about support for the self-employed in the medium to high ranges, those that aren't classed as low income. So still self-employed, still affected by COVID-19. Now, what's been proposed is the lower of 80% of their monthly net earnings averaged over the last 3 years and 2,917 per month. So it's either the lower of your average earnings or the lower of 2,917 per month. We think this is going to be based on taxable earnings. I'm guessing it's going to be based on self-assessment for the years that we have reported. We're almost at the end of the current tax year, so what we've got to until the 5th of April, which is a couple of weeks' time. So my thoughts are going to be that we need to get our tax returns done much earlier this year than we would normally have done to be able to provide the 3 years worth of income earnings so that we can calculate whether or not we're entitled or how much we're entitled to on this self-employment support. Now, proposals are currently in draft form. They're being debated, I believe, today. So we should hear more later on today about help that's coming for the self-employed. They are super, super complicated because of the disparity in earnings, because we have generally lower salaries and higher dividends, but we're still paying taxes, we're still paying national insurance, so should still be entitled to some kind of support if our incomes have dried up. And again, don't forget that this is only going to be for those individuals affected by COVID-19. If you can still continue to trade and earn a living through an online wage, you might not need to claim any additional support as a self-employed person. Now, self-employed people do feel a little bit like they're in limbo. Hopefully, by the end of today, we'll have a little more clarity on what is being proposed to help people who are self-employed, director shareholders of their own businesses.